Hello, I'm Paolo Biella, researcher at the University of Milano-Bicocca, a university nearby the Parco Nord Milano. That is the place where we are now. I'm here because the university will help the park in realizing monitoring and surveying pollinators within the project Urban Green Plans. The aim of this project is to increase the flowering surface in the park and in the area nearby the park. Therefore, within the city, nearby the houses of the people living in this area. The reason is to increase the sustainability of the urban landscape, in particular by providing resources, flowering resources to the pollinators which are fundamental for the services of pollinating the plants that are the base of our ecosystems and our living. The Parco Nord Milano is a peculiar area within the city of Milan because it hosts a high biodiversity already before the action of the project. For instance, we found here during the previous samplings of carried out by our university, we found, for instance, 2 bumblebees that within the city of Milan only inhabit this park. We also found another bumblebee that is guide species for forested areas, which means that this bumblebee lives, especially in the lowlands, only where are the forests. And this is important because Parco Nord Milano hosts the oldest forest within the urban matrix of Milan. So the situation here, the background is really peculiar in contrast to other areas of the city where there is higher human footprint. However, this is not enough for pollinators because a large part of the park is managed for the use of the people. For instance, the grass is mown very frequently and the flowering diversity is really low. The project aims to reverse this trend and to increase the flowers for pollinators. The needs for this project are really fundamental for pollinators because pollinators need flowers throughout the entire season, from the end of the winter till the beginning of autumn. This is because flowers provide nectar and pollen for adults and larvae, which means that pollinators need to collect flower resources to reproduce and to carry on their populations. This is very important. During this process, they pollinate the flowers, and therefore also the plants are able to reproduce themselves and increase the diversity of the vegetation here in this park. Another need of the project is to involve the population of Milan because there is no action without the involvement of the people inhabiting this area. The actions were both involving people by fundraising, but also in practice they were involved also during the plantations of the flowers. Therefore, they contributed directly to the realization of the. In 2019, the planning of this activity here in the park of planting the flowers started. At the same time, our university started sampling the pollinating fauna here in the park. This is very important because in this way we will have an overview of what happened before and after planting these flowers. The first blooming of the flowers actually happened in 2021. Therefore, we are at the right time in this season 2022 to actually evaluate and measure how these flowers are helping the pollinators here in terms of diversity and interactions with plants. Another need of the project is to involve the population of Milan because there is no action without the involvement of the people inhabiting this area. The actions were both involving people by fundraising, but also in practice they were involved also during the plantations of the flowers. Therefore, they contributed directly to the realization of the. In 2019, the planning of this activity here in the park of planting the flowers started. At the same time, our university started sampling the fauna, the pollinating fauna here in the park. This is very important because in this way we will have an overview of what happened before and after planting these flowers. The first blooming of the flowers actually happened in 2021. Therefore, we are at the right time in this season 2022 to actually evaluate and measure how these flowers are helping the pollinators here in terms of diversity and interactions with plants. The actions of the project involve the people inhabiting this area directly by asking them to join the efforts of planting the flowers here in this flower strip in this park. At the same time, the university started the monitoring and sampling pollinators, especially wild bees and syrphids, which are the main groups of pollinators, the more important pollinators of the plants, in several areas here in this park. In future, we will carry on this activity with special reference to the planting here, and we will compare, therefore, the situation before and after the planting. We will look especially at two aspects. The first is the diversity of pollinators, which means the number of different types of different species of wild bees, managed bees, honeybees, and syrphids, which are flies actually. But these are all very important pollinators. We will also, however, measure the importance of the plants for attracting the pollinators by looking at which plants are visited the most by these insects. In this way, we will be able to provide guidance for future measures, for instance, by reinforcing the planting of some species of plants, or by looking at which pollinators are more relevant for the interactions with plants. All these aspects, especially the aspect related to the interactions, are very important for, as I said at the beginning, the collection of flower resources, pollen and nectar, and also for the reproduction of these plants in terms of producing seeds. Fortunately, we did not find significant difficulties during the activities here in the previous years. Perhaps the most significant aspect to keep in mind is that the surface that has been planted is really large. Therefore, it is basically impossible to sample the entire surface at the same time. We had to select key areas where to carry on the research, where to carry on the monitoring, but we are confident that we chose wisely because we also considered the landscape surrounding the flowers, not only which flowers are planted, but also the surrounding landscape. So if there are forests, how old they are, how much impervious concrete surface is there, and so on. These aspects are all taken into account.